March 26th. We respectively acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people where we live, learn, and play. A motion to adopt the agenda is before you. Trustee DeGroot, Trustee Croft, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. And I apologize, Trustee Thorne is not able to join us, and hopefully Trustee Doman will be joining us shortly. Minutes of the stellar, absolutely incredible meeting of February 26th, and the only comment on that Trustee DeGroot and I were not there. Apparently it was the best meeting ever. And by looking at the meeting, it was. The meeting minutes, it was. So.
Draw no conclusions from that.
Okay. Trustee Spilberry, did you want to, as chair of that meeting, move?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Action list, can we go to that meeting? 4.1. To do with rainbow crosswalks, I believe.
Spring break has gotten in the way of the initial meeting, so we will work to meet with the CDTA as soon as we can to get the information as quickly as we can back to the committee.
Great, and can I ask, will that include discussions with the member municipalities, because there are 3? And the CBRD. The CBRD doesn't really have control over roads, but
These are on school site property. They're not community crosswalks.
why are they asking for on school? How many crosswalks do we have on our school?
They
Create.
will create
We
crosswalks.
will have one each.
Yes.
So we don't want them to cross roads?
These aren't for on the roads. For the presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions on that one? We have one delegation tonight, Cowichan Intercultural Society Settlement Workers in our schools. Christine Bacon. Christine, can you please join us at the front of the table? Welcome.
Wow, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'd like to pass out a brochure that you can look at while I'm talking. So I'm going to send some. There are enough for other people. So like I said, thank you very much for having me. I know it's a busy time always to put together all of the pieces that are going around our district. I'm Christine Fagan. I've worked with the Cowichan Intercultural Society for about 24 years off and on. I'm not an immigrant myself unless you count Saskatchewan, just like probably many of you came from. We've worked in the valley since about 1981. I know that Lynn was here a couple months ago talking about our general services. And my role as the settlement worker in the schools has been primarily to be part of the settlement team, but as we try to provide seamless service to all the families that are coming as newcomers, immigrants or refugees into our valley. So we've had over 100 Syrian refugees. The numbers continuing to grow. We have around 4 families, I think, that came in March. Some have school-age children, but many have children that will be coming through the schools. The government decided to give the Intercultural Society some money a couple of years ago because the Swiss program is funded in other communities, but our numbers hadn't really warranted it until a couple of years ago. Then we've recently had some sad news that the funding has bottomed out for the Swiss role, but that doesn't mean that the work we do in the schools is over, because we did it before we got the funding, and we will continue to do it now that my job is over for now. So one of the things that you might wonder is, what does a Swiss worker do? And so this is part of the brochure. When people come to our valley and they haven't got a clue how the school system works, or how to register, or how to get a report card, they can hopefully be assisted by you, the first point of contact, giving them a brochure. Sometimes they hear about us through the library, sometimes they hear about us through the airport when they come in. But basically, we're a service that many communities and many countries don't even offer, so immigrants will be surprised that there is an agency actually that will help them know which questions to ask. So these are some of the questions that have come from families, that have come from parents of kids. Our work is always motivated by those people who have the questions, not just what we think is the right thing to do. It's coming from the families themselves. So does my daughter have the right classes for graduating and going to university? I want to help at the school. How do I do that? My son doesn't really have any Canadian friends, but he'd like some. Any ideas? What does this report card mean? Or what is this digital report card? Or what is a login? Or how do I log in? Stuff like that. So these questions, we've also translated a lot of the services on the back. These are the 3 dominant languages. There's English, Punjabi, and Korean. We don't know all of the demographics information that actually the district holds, because people hear about us, or maybe they don't hear about us, but usually they'll be coming through schools. So that is one place where the district can help us, is to provide some of that demographic information, so we know how to reach out to families a little bit better to tell them about our services. This is, I know it's very small, you're not meant to read all those little bits and pieces. This is an example of how complex the service flow is. So this is partly to do with registration, and then it's how to support the child as they go through the school. So how do they talk to the counselor? How do they get any specialized services? How do they divert to this or that program? And this is in progress. I'm just waiting to hear back if this works for the district. We started out wondering how do we do this? What is the service flow for newcomers? And there really isn't one yet. We're kind of in the newer ground of that. So that's where the district can really help us see what works for you, and we can help support that. So academics is important, but most of the kids, if you ask them, it's really about finding friends. And finding the friends will help their English, will help their sense of self, and then the academic increases, as a result of that. We've been very lucky to have some good partnerships in the school. Cal High has let me come in and start a welcome club. It's a lunch hour club once a week. And we just play games. We've had, the attendance fluctuates, it's a drop-in. And the point is just to be a safe place to come and hang out if you don't know who else to hang out with. So we have Canadian kids that come, we have newcomer kids that come, and it's just a nice place to hang out. This was a welcome banner that we painted as part of the Welcome Club, and now it hangs at Cal High. There's one at Quantition also. So when running some of these programs, considerations for the teachers and for the staff goes beyond what they might see in Canadian students. Things like health problems, cultural, food and dietary restrictions, just those extra things that are outside our normal realm of awareness. So when dealing with newcomer students, it's good to remember what you would feel like if you were stuck in a country where you didn't know the language, or even if you knew the language, you didn't know the culture yet. And you might not have any other personal family or relationship that you could ask those questions to. And that's where we come in. So the Intercultural Society has always helped people know which questions to ask. Overwhelmingly, they say that the work we do for them helping with schools has made a huge impact in the classroom, impact with friends. The feedback from teachers, from principals, from ELL teachers is great. You know, it's amazing to see how the school community has been resourceful in supporting so many new refugee students and also other immigrants. So it's been challenging, but it's also been really, really well met. We run other programs that support outside school, and some of them are on district property, which is amazing. You know, it helps us to be able to run the program without having to spend all of money on location. Spring break camp, summer camp, peer tutoring, after school kids club, youth group, and youth volunteer opportunities. So it's important to remember that even though we have all of these challenges and these pieces of information that we have to deal with, the immigrants come with like huge gifts to share, and they want to share them, so there's a reciprocity, and they don't feel like everything's just being given to them. So especially when I'm looking at newcomer students and youth, they come with such a resilience and a maturity, diverse approach to problem solving, increased responsibility due to travel. Some of them, they're the ones taking care of all of their siblings while their parents are dealing with the bureaucracy, say in a refugee camp or something. So this is a kid now going through our high school. They're very mature. They experience navigating difficult situations. Often they have to assist parents' limited English. They're resilient. They're ready to learn. And their knowledge of English and Canadian cultural practices that they learn at school helps the families. We try really hard not to put those kids in the situation where they have to be the interpreter. It's important for the school to remember. They might not even interpret what you want them to. You know, depends what the message is. If they might benefit from not telling you exactly the right thing. But also, their colloquial English might be much higher than some of the complex issues that come up at a school meeting. So it's good to involve the Intercultural Society and bring in interpreters if needed. So what I came to tell you, even though I'm about to leave my role, is that first and foremost I want you to see CIS as a resource. So these brochures, hopefully you can pass along. I know that we're going to give a bunch to the principals and the schools. This is a service that we are trying to still work out some of the systems to, but if you can help us connect those families to us, we not only can help the students, but we can help the entire family. Support the existing CIS programs that benefit, like the after-school club and continued use of location. Facilitate the school supports for vulnerable newcomer students. So things like flagging about students so that they go through the system and nobody gets kind of lost in the gap. Explore what's being done in other communities. Some communities have more immigrants. There are these very innovative programs that have come up, and I know our numbers don't warrant it yet, but they are coming. And so why not look at what's being done elsewhere and say, wow, that's a really cool idea, can we use it here? So that's my main encouragement to you is to just continue to be curious, ask lots of questions, find out what's going on here at our schools, how's it going for the newcomers, how's it going for the elementary students, how's it going for the secondary students, and know that we can help you build any programs that you want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I have a question, more than curious about why is the funding being, drying up, if you use the word?
Yeah, answer that one, if you don't mind. So so the initial funding was through what's called a Syrian top-up. It was additional funds beyond the base funding, specifically in response to the volume of refugees that arrived in a very short period of time in our community. And so that now, 3 years later, has run its course. We were able to stretch it much longer than we anticipated. So we do still plan on achieving, what I would call Swiss outcomes. The settlement worker and school program, in a sense, will still continue. It just will be housed more fully at CIS in the absence of having Christine in the role, essentially. But we'll still designate a point person. So for any district level stuff, certainly it can come to me, but otherwise the settlement team will still be supporting all of the families in the community. And just on that, I'd like to just acknowledge Christine and all of her work on the program in the last couple of years.
Thank you. I just need to follow up on what is the criteria, because I'm used to a community that always seems to be, I've always had a Swiss worker, and then I have ladies in the area or workers. So what is the criteria, the threshold that we have to be at?
Yeah, that's a good comparison because Nanaimo is quite a bit larger, larger city, larger number of newcomers, and larger number of refugees. Partly it'll depend, I think, on the next wave of government-assisted refugees. That's something that typically we don't see in this community, but we did see in 2016. So if there's another round of government-assisted refugees, then I could see them ramping up Swiss funding again. And certainly we are proposing it again to the federal government for our next proposal, which is in progress right now. So we're hopeful. I mean, certainly immigration levels overall are set to continue to rise in our community, just as they are across most of Canada. So I think there's a strong case for it for the future, but just this specific iteration of it was based on Syrian refugee arrivals.
Thank you. Any other questions? Trustee Spilsbury.
Well, I just take the opportunity to thank you and the Intercultural Society, of course, for your work with students in our schools. I'm sure that that partnership between the school and staff with CIS is really beneficial to families and kids. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Christine.
I don't know the protocol. Do you want to stay? Do you go?
Oh, you're-
It's
It's your choice.
so
You're free to
exciting.
stay and you're free to go.
There we go.
Subtext is run while you can.
All right.
Thanks everyone, good night.
Thank you.
So next up is our, to do with education, we have two school plans. Jeff, we are not leaving the best to the last, well maybe we are, but you get to go first, so.
We are. It's interesting you brought Jordan and you're doing the tech.
Hoping I can get a,
Oh, yeah,
did the code come up?
There you go, there's your code, Jeff.
7498.
We're off together. Okay. Yeah, so thanks for having us. This is Jordan Heath, one of our teachers. I think a real success that we've had at school is being able to hire people that look vaguely like my younger version of myself. So that was
A long time ago, Jeff.
it was pointed out to me actually about 2 months after you were hired. I was like, I didn't see it, but anyway.
Kids pointed that out to me in the first week.
Yeah.
It's Minnie Rowan.
So anyway, no, Jordan's joined us. He's been great. I think you're about 5 years into teaching right now.
I think it's fourth.
Fourth year. So, and he did a lot of work with us in tech, and he's going to talk about one of the programs I think that's been a little bit different for us. So mainly our goal has been to really encourage kids to participate in a lot of our clubs and activities. We think that was important. We wanted to make sure the students and the staff were engaged and empowered to create some new learning opportunities. We also wanted to keep the environment that we had. Kelsey's always had a flexible scheduling system, an advisory system that's been very important to us, and I think just a really supportive environment. And lastly, we really, again, building a lot of partnerships with the community and working with them. It's an important slide for us. We're not self-paced. We're not. And we've been rebranding this for 5 years. We're not. No one's self-paced.
You still get parents.
Absolutely.
So
So
you're self-paced? No.
we're not. We need to complete on the semester. We run like any other school that way. Our transition numbers are the same as you'd expect in other schools. It's a hangover from 20 years ago, and we're not. We want to be self-directed. We want to be personalized. We want to be responsive, but we're not self-paced. Right? Kids have to complete. And that was from the 2012 audit when our district, you can't double bill for courses each year. And it was, I think it's been a gift. Some people lament that. I look at that as a gift. Our scheduling in grade 8 looks very similar to Quamachin and Lake Couch and some others, 100% scheduled for grade 8s. Grade 9s have a choice, a flexible block each semester, so they're about 80% scheduled. And then our grade 10 to 12s is somewhere around 65% scheduled mandatory classes. And then they do have some flexible scheduling in there. And again, we talked about the advisory, et cetera. For all of you, just some things. Our school data, 943 this year, expected to rise next year, closer to 1,000. 94 students Aboriginal, 149 kids with special needs. So we're about that average 15% that you see in most of our schools. And we're the grade to grade transition rates is what you would expect province-wide. So the big thing for I think our goal, and it's really been since 2015, is this idea of agency. And it's that the agency, the ability to make independent choices and have ownership in the system. And I really feel that's been the strength of our school. We encourage our staff, and we kind of started there. What ideas do you have, and what can you bring to the table for new opportunities? We're doing things like cross-curricular in grade 9, school-wide. We're doing a trails program right now where we had this year 150 kids. That's their socials and PE program is out on, they're learning with the teachers, and then they're out on Cobble Hill Mountain building trails and orienteering and the rest of it. It's been really, really successful. Our drama program, which the school is known for, I was really pleased with the theater this year again. There's real vibrancy there. And drama, music, art has been very strong. Plus, in the top corner there, you see a couple of girls. We are open to every opportunity that comes by. Craig Lurtzen came by. Hey, we can get kids out on a sailing trip. It's next week. But we did it. We got about a dozen kids over a course of cycles to go through the work with Parks Canada and building clam gardens and doing research vessels. We're taking every opportunity we have. And I think that has spread. Our staff is also willing to take on those risks and opportunities, which is important for us. So Jordan's a good example. And he did a presentation at the Pro D Day a while ago, but I don't think most of you were there. So I thought it'd be a good example. It's an idea where, again, it wasn't. I think of video games as a waste of time, frankly. But I listened, right? And he. But well, I do. But Jordan came with a proposal and some kids, and that's part of that agency. The kids want to do things. The staff comes with things. We need to hear it out. If it isn't appropriate, then of course we can't do it. But if something's there, we need to listen. And so, Jordan, you wanna
Sure.
explain your idea?
So, I saw a large number of students who were not engaged in the traditional PE program. And that was one of the things that I had identified over the first year and a bit at the school, that there's a subpopulation that doesn't get PE, and they tend to also be kids who do get games. And so they are passionate about something, but not exercising, which is a problem. So I went and tried to design a class that would get those kids into engaged in PE, and also meet them where they are and try and let them celebrate the things that they want to be doing, and acknowledge that they work really hard in that field, and so try and acknowledge that the work they do. So here's a little video of some of the students in my class from last year. It's not the group of kids, so, well, first, when I went to propose the idea of a boxing and esports class, I thought maybe there's a 1 in 20 chance that this goes through. There's a 19%, 19 out of 20 times he's going to say, yeah, you can't do boxing and esports. That's not going to happen. So when he said, write that up, like show me this, I went, oh, okay, this might actually happen. So I was really excited, and I went through and put together this curriculum, and I just have to say how thrilled I have been as a teacher to have had the opportunity to even try this and do this with a group of kids. It's been so much fun. So first things, this is not the group of boxing. This is not a group of boxing students. When you think of who are the kids that are going to sign up for a boxing class, it's not these kids. And I love these kids, and they're great, but fitness is not the thing that they come to first. This is not why they signed up. They don't want to beat people up. They do want to win. And so I was able to find that these kids are very competitive. They are very driven. They do want to succeed, and they don't have trouble in regular PE classes because they don't enjoy competition. They have trouble in PE classes because it's difficult to stop a game of soccer and tell one kid how to kick a ball. It's difficult to say, oh, no, stop. We need to teach, we need to help you learn how to kick a ball. Everyone, stop what you're doing. Boxing is a little different. You have everyone separated, you have everyone working by themselves, so you can stop and say, oh, I'm going to help you and tweak the way that you're holding your arm. A lot of these kids can't kick a ball. Next slide. I just want to play it one more time. A lot of these kids can't kick a ball. The idea of being coordinated enough to play basketball or soccer is really hard. And so breaking it down into steps that are manageable had a big impact for them. Now, what is boxing and esports? Because it is a strange combination. It's why did that not jump? There we are. It's a combination of two studies. In the lab, we play esports, which are video games that are taken very seriously, played professionally. It's a growing industry. It's kind of a weird thing. It was something that I got to see kind of unfold during my university years. But now it's a multi-billion dollar industry. Universities are starting to offer scholarships and having their own programs in esports. And so we work on the games themselves. We talk about how to improve at those games. We talk about the strategies and the sort of higher level metacognitive processes of like a meta shifting and adapting to the current trends. And we work on just basic reaction times and the ability to keep up with these really fast-paced games. That's half of the time. So we go every day. Half of the time we're in the lab, and then half of the time we're in the gym, learning how to box. And in boxing, we get to work on a lot of the same skills that help them in their games. So there's a lot of overlap that they didn't see at the beginning, but you can show them. If you work on your reaction times in boxing, that's going to help your game. It's going to make you a better player. If you increase your personal fitness, it will also allow you to relax into the game. It's difficult to show them that professionals who get paid $1 million to play this game, they work out. If you look at their schedule, they work out twice a day. They have an hour-long run in the morning and an hour-long run at the end of their game session. It's the same as like chess. You don't see unhealthy chess masters. Part of being mentally sharp is being physically sharp, and so we try to do that in the gym. And finally, you don't get good at anything if you give up when it's hard. And so the perseverance it takes to get through a boxing class or a fitness-inspired boxing class, it's not an easy time. They have to grit. These kids come in not being able to do a single push-up, struggling with, they don't run. And so the development of those basic cardio and muscular skills is hard. There's no way around that. And so developing that grit helps. And so our goal with it was to engage students in their world, develop good work ethic, and improve the fitness levels. And finally, create healthy gaming habits. Because like you said, games have a really bad rep. And it's not all for bad reason. It's very easy to waste a lot of time with games. It's very easy to do them in an unhealthy way, to consume them in an unhealthy way. Similar to how it's easy to sit down and binge watch a Netflix series, spend 8 hours watching your favorite Netflix show. That's not a healthy way to consume that medium, but it doesn't mean that Netflix is bad. And it's similar, we've kind of got this thing with games where we say, a lot of people will say games are bad, when it's really you have to teach kids how to use games and play games in a way that is healthy. So that's the other kind of underlying current of the course. So the results have been really exciting. Students are engaged, they're excited, and they're passionate about what they're learning. So I don't have any attendance problems. The kids who are in this course are there to learn, they show up, and they try their hardest. Teens on the spectrum have been probably one of the most exciting things to see, especially in their communication and the way they connect with their peers. Because if you take this kid who cares a lot about a game, who's used to playing that game by himself, and you put him in a room with a bunch of kids who's playing it with him, and not only that, but they value those people want to win as well. So suddenly you take someone who's never in a leadership role, who suddenly becomes a shot caller, who starts telling people what to do. So I started the year with one kid in particular who wouldn't say a word, was very quiet, and then by the end of the year he was so invested in the games he's playing with the kids that he's running the team. He's telling, you go there, okay, I'm going to go there, and then he'll meet you in the mid lane, and then we're going to jump, and we're going to do this, and he's strategizing, and it gives a new context for that communication. This is, sorry, go back one. The other thing here is that it gets them to humanize the players they play with. Most of the time when you're playing video games, it's by yourself against people who are anonymous. And so you can say really bad things to those people, and those people will say really bad things to you, and it takes the sting out of it. Whereas when you are playing with people, you have to deal with the sting of loss, and there's someone out there across the computer, it humanizes the experience. You can't call that person mean names. You just have to sit with it, and you have to deal with it properly. And so here's just a little bit of some of the growth. These are students who hadn't had any experience boxing, had never really done any running, and towards the end of the year, they started to get a little more coordinated. And you just click on, just click on the one there with Trevor. So they take it very seriously. This is one thing they had to make up a combination, and so they were drilling the same combinations over and over again. And they were showing off what they'd been able to come up with. And so if you on the right there, he's one of our students. He's on the spectrum. Oh, what happened to the video? Okay, well I messed that up. I guess we'll move on. So the future, I'm really excited to see where this goes. The kids are enrolled in it, and they're continuing to sign up. I'm starting an after-school program, so they want to come and they want to stay and they want to play more and they want to train. So I think we'll continue along doing that. We've signed up for a high school esports league, which competes against, there's about 1,500 other teams in North America who are part of this league. So we will be playing once a week against one of those teams in North America at 5 p.m. And I did a summer camp. That's actually a picture from the summer camp. Those kids wanted to continue doing the course over the summer. So they said, Mr. Heath, would you please make a summer camp for us? And we did. And we had about 20 kids out for 2.5 weeks in the summer to come and get sweaty and play some games. And we'll probably also be doing that in the summer. But yeah, so I love it. I'm so happy I've had the chance to do it. And, I think it's great.
It's one of those examples. I think there's a number of those programs we've found some success with. Had 30 kids last year, 2 blocks this year, 60 kids. So, and hopefully we'll hold it that. So the other part, and I know we're running out of time, so we're going to end, so we'll quick.
you're using my time then.
Anyway, we did some work with making sure kids get involved. We got brochures out that we send to people. Our community relations at the top, that was the Q100. The zone, we used that money to get grants. Really strong partnerships with Malahat Nation. Continue to build on those relationships. Our RCMP one really quickly. You had a great liaison. For minor offenses, he gives the kids essays. If they do an essay, they don't get the ticket. Like, it's been an interesting thing. Yeah, there's those kind of, there's creativity. It's spreading into the community, Barb. So and it's not just us. It's the people down there. Really good feedback. We've had parent surveys, done our student surveys, and we're looking for feedback, and the feedback we've had has been very positive so far. So again, just to wrap our goals, we're getting kids participating in clubs and activities, making sure staff and students feel that agency and empowerment to have ideas, bring ideas forward, and let's see if they can work, while maintaining our flexible scheduling and involving the community. I also brought, and this is for your home reading, is we do do some real role planning and stuff. So, like, this is all our departments. We did this one in September, and it's just by department. Each department has to set their goals, of course, and so there, anyway, that's the more official work Cheryl needs.
So maybe we'll hold questions until after Danny's done, and then have an opportunity for a bit of a conversation. Does that work out?
Thank you. Yeah, that's certainly not too long.
Thank you very much.
All right.
SBO boardroom?
Yep. Want to see it? Look at she has to stand up.
But Jeff sat down, so I get to sit down. So, my name's Danny. This is Lawrence Weston. He's the vice principal. I was going to say, looks like I'm not presenting today. So, when I started at Alexander 3 years ago, was around right before we, as a district, started to talk about learning frameworks. And I would say 4 weeks into my time at Alexander, Richard Matthews was our school counselor, and he said, hey, have you ever heard of this thing called positive behavior support? And I said, oh, I've heard of it, but that's about as far as it goes. And he said, if I can get some funding from support services, I think that we should send some teachers to get some training. I didn't know anything about it. I did not even go on the training. I had the opportunity, but we sent more teachers instead. And teachers came back all excited about their learning. And I had only been at Alexander for a couple of weeks when this whole ball started rolling. And I didn't yet know there was anything specific behaviorally that we needed to work on, but the staff really felt that way. So we had 5 teachers go and do some learning and some training, and they came back super excited to share with us right around the same, no, I'm 1 year off. They came back super excited to share with us. And as a staff, we learned about what positive behavior support was. And all throughout our PLCs that year and our staff meetings that year, we, as a community, learned what it was and how we could implement it. And we were reminded all along the way that it's really, really slow process and we have to take our time. So we used that full school year to do some planning as a staff. We didn't talk to parents about it, we didn't talk to kids about it. We learned together and got excited about the idea of it. We, as a staff, decided it was time to kind of rebrand Alexander. And I hadn't been there before, so for me it was good timing because I was new too. So we worked with our Indigenous department and our Dolly, who's our school elder. She helped us because we wanted to have a new mascot or icon or symbol of Alexander School. So one day at one of our PLCs, she had 10 different animals, Vancouver Island animals, with their Halkidiki names and what they represented. And as a staff, we went through it all, we had lots of discussion, and we agreed on the wolf. We decided that the meaning behind the wolf was who we were. And I think that was right around the time we hired Lawrence, who worked just as a behavior teacher when we first hired him. And so he came in to Alexander in the discussions. And then we decided, okay, September, we're going to launch this with the kids. And we're going to talk about what this means with the kids. And we had done all this work the previous year, and we talked about, we wanted our school to be reflective of a wolf pack. We were together, we were a team, we were all for one, and the letters in PAC, P-A-C-K, were going to stand for positive, accepting, cooperative, and kind, which is what we wanted from our learners. And in that September or October, we had the district meeting where it was time to submit a learning plan for your schools. And it was a bit of a magical moment for us at Alexander because we were already doing something. There was this inspirational morning where we were called upon to, kind of get moving on some transformation and some good stuff. And when we came together as a staff, we're doing this already. So as a staff, we decided that we were going to do our learning framework as just continuing the work we were doing. So in that meeting, we decided, okay, our goal is going to be to have our kids be educated citizens in an environment that's positive, accepting, cooperative, and kind. And as a staff, we put our learning plan together as a staff. So this is what you see here as our school. This is our plan. Our staff decided they wanted to do it as not a piece of paper, but as a living document where we could put things. We had a brainstorm in that first meeting as a tree. We thought our plan was like a tree with some roots and that was growing and there was branches. So we've used the tree as sort of part of our symbolism, I guess. And over the course of the entirety of last year, and it's evolved into this year, when we meet as a staff to talk about our plan and our kids, everything is here. So what we're going to show you here, and I'll probably just zip through it and kind of share stories instead. The staff did this. We had EAs who took on certain parts, teachers took on certain parts, little committees were formed of EAs and teachers and our EVED staff, and they did certain parts. So this is not just Lawrence and I making this presentation, this has been ongoing for 2 years, and when we had to submit it, I think Barb made us send something, send a piece of paper please. So somewhere there's a piece of paper. So as a staff and as our school community, we decided that the two big parts of our roots as Alexander School are our culture and our history. And culturally, we have a significant number of our students are Cowichan, so that is a really important part of what we do every day, but we also have lots and lots of students who are, we have some refugee students, we have students from Greece, we have students from the Philippines, we have them, we're pretty internationally represented. So, and again, these are just slides that different staff members have put together. We focus on these things. These words right here were words that our community thought about with our kids and our learners. We had 2 deaf students at one time, we only have 1 now. And our history was important too. Before I moved to Alexander, about I think 5, 6 years, maybe 4 years before, Coquesilla closed. So Alexander became part Coquesilla, part Alexander. So there was some coming together of 2 cultures, and I think, I wasn't there, but there were some growing pains throughout that. And so by the time Lawrence and I arrived, I think the staff were ready to be Alexander again, not you're Coquesilla, you're Alexander. Kids no longer associated with, Coquesilla or Alexander, we were just Alexander. So we needed a goal and a plan. So of course, it was easy enough to put together what we had decided as a staff we wanted our school to be, which is that our wolf pack, and then going over the pieces of what makes the educated citizen. It was a natural fit. We had our wolf designed by Denise Augustine's daughter. She did that for us, and our staff and our pack really welcomed it. We've blitzed everything with our little buddy the wolf here. And the educated citizen, you guys know. And for our wolf pack, we have what that looks like in all sorts of different areas of the school. Sometimes it's working really great. Sometimes it's pretty terrible, and we need some good reminders. Classrooms have some wolf pack matrices for their learning space. And then here's our plan. Here's the tree that started it all. That's a piece of paper that I emailed in when I had to email something. It is pinned up to the office right now. Part of what we talk about our learning plan and making sure it reaches all of our kids. There's a big chunk of Alexander students who are Aboriginal, who are in care, who have special needs. We actually have a significant chunk that are all 3 of those things. So when we were going over this with staff, we didn't really have to think separately about how to reach kids in care or students with special needs or Aboriginal students. They're all of our kids. So our positive behavior is the big thing. We have in the front of our school a wolf den. It changed this year. We had a new year, so we have fresh wolf den. And when the students are caught being positive, accepting, cooperative, or kind, they come down to the office. They have a little wolf paw, which Lawrence has thoughtfully brought to share, and they get to put the wolf paw up on the wolf den. They don't get anything else. They get a great conversation with whichever adult gave them the wolf paw, and hopefully they get a great conversation with either myself, our school secretary, who's amazing, or Lawrence. And the general rule is you don't get to put your wolf paw up in the wolf den unless you know why you got it. And if you can't tell me why you got it, you go back, find the adult who gave it to you, and figure it out. This year we've started to take photos of the kids, and we let print them off on the black and white photocopier, and they take them home. Sometimes you forget to take a photo. The children will remind you, hey, where's my picture? Oh yeah. So that has been going on. Every time the wolf den fills up, we have a whole school celebration. There is no draw. We don't draw tickets for kids who got in the draw on the wolf den. It is a whole school celebration. The first time the wolf den was filled, they duct taped me to the wall. It was very exciting. We've canceled classes and gone over to Quamaton and used their multipurpose room for our school, whole school movie. Lots of, I think, good stuff. And I would say it seems to be working.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I think, and I took those off my bulletin board, those pictures. We give every student who comes down a chance to explain in their own words what it was that got them that. But the amazing thing, and Danny and I were talking about this, is they never come down and say I've won this. It's intrinsic to them. It's meaningful, deeply meaningful. New kids, they're so excited. And you can see it in the pictures, and it's not just, you know, a generation of kids that is used to taking pictures of themselves. They really are genuinely excited to get the photo. And it's a piece of paper. Like all the value in this piece of paper is intrinsic. Sometimes teachers will write it on the back if a student can't clearly articulate what it was. So even the littlest of kids will come down and they show you the back of the page. And say, this is what I did. And it's not something that we could have done alone. It's the whole staff who for years have committed to this. And it was interesting talking about the whole cycle and the arc of this. We're in a mature phase of doing PBIS. And we were talking about, well, where do we go with this next? Because it's been super successful for us. And then we recently had Richard come back and do trauma-informed workshops for us. Staff asked for this, well, we really want to know about it. And he said, well, I can do them, but you're already doing it because of this. So we're already in a place where we're meeting the needs of the kids that are in our school, especially that 90%. And, you know, it started, like this would look different in any school. And that's, I think, another important thing. Like it's really Alexander, the pack, the wolf. It's really what we built to represent ourselves, but it's transferable to any other school thing. But it's been an amazing journey.
And it takes a good while to fill up that wolf den. I'd say 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks every fill. And the kids are really good at letting us know it's getting pretty full. What's next? It's getting pretty full.
Yeah.
Which is, it's been really, really good. And not purposefully, but it has started to kind of bleed into other areas of what's going on. So when I read report cards that get sent home, most teachers refer to wolf pack behavior in the comment section of report cards. We have a section in our newsletter. We talk about, you know, how it's going, and family members know. They understand what's happening. Students have really begun to identify with the wolf. One of our teachers bought a stuffy, big stuffed wolf that comes out only at assemblies. So one of our students who has some special needs, his job is to bring the wolf in assembly. And he doesn't like coming to assemblies, so this is how we get him to come to assemblies. And he will wait till everyone's quiet, he'll use the trolley, and he'll tote that wolf all the way in and very responsibly put him down. And he will often just stand beside me for much of the assembly, but that gets him in the door where he wasn't coming in before.
So. I think we're both talking and laughing because over the arc again of this whole process, Dave.
Oh, Dave.
Our Dave story. When I first got there, Danny and I talked, and Dave was one of the kids that we were really concerned about at the time.
Before I started at Alexander, he was a boy that teachers referred to him as Angry Dave. He was just angry all the time. First Nations, in care,
all three.
And has special needs.
Yep. And it's really about changing what adults in the building too. We have a common language, we have a common way of approaching the students. The students keep hearing the same thing over and over again and get treated the same way. We've gone from being like having to focus on specific general places, now we can really address the individual. And Dave's one of those individuals that we've really helped. We, and when I say we, I don't mean us, I mean all of us at our school. He's now drummer Dave.
Yeah.
And you would never, I don't think if you met him, now think he was angry.
He
transformed.
We drum every morning, and we have grade 7 boys who drum every morning. That's their job. But they're also often late. And so one day they were late. I needed a drummer. Dave was there, so I threw a drum in his hand and said, "Drum." And now he looks forward to Moody being late every day because he gets to be the drummer. And he can't wait for those 2 boys to be finished at Alexander because we've already,
He's responsible.
he knows when they're gone, that's my job. I get to drum. So, back to this. We talk about different little aspects of what's happening in our school. Lots of our teachers are super excited about trying to get outside in nature. It isn't a huge thing we're doing right now, but it is a hope, a dream, a wish, and a goal. We have a garden. A couple years back, the Cowichan Green community helped build some gardens, and one of our staff members helped build boxes. We have 14 garden boxes in 14 divisions, and sometimes there's lettuce and radishes in there, sometimes there's not. One day we'd like an outdoor classroom, but that's one day. We have a leadership crew who work together. We have, ever since we started our Wolf Pack, so this will be year 2 or 3, the grade 6s get to go on a end of year retreat to learn about what it's going to be like to be a grade 7 leadership student in the Wolf Pack. What's your responsibility? What do you have to do? And this is a cute picture of one of our students helping another student. Just being more inclusive, our students with special needs are all integrated right into different classrooms, different divisions, and I don't think anyone really blinks or thinks twice about the different. Sometimes they have a different program in the same classroom. We have lots of great connections to our community. This is our kindergartens with their Big Buddy classes who went over to Warmland House last Christmas and brought some Christmas cards. That's our leadership club. We've got tons of buddy classes. We've done Roots of Empathy. I'm currently doing Roots of Empathy with my dog. I don't know what happened to my presentation, but that part seems to be over now. I think.
And our latest one is where we have a group of students that are going to other schools. So we just did Mill Bay Nature School, and they taught them dance. They spent 2 days teaching them dance.
Yeah.
Really powerful. Just watching these kids take a leadership role, going to another school, connected. It's amazing.
We've been, I think, really good at school, in the moments, in staff meetings, in the hallways, in the staff room, sharing the anecdotes and the good news stories and the funny little, the personalized pieces that make us remember that what we're doing is good work. We're not as successful as getting those stories down on paper, but we're trying. We have some great things going on. We have a Strong Start in our building, and they put together hampers, 28 to 30 hampers for some of our families right at Christmas time. So we get the amazing opportunity to call families and let them know they've won a hamper. You might have seen us on the news last year. We decided somehow, some way, to just try drinking water only at Alexander. It was really easy for us because we feed our kids lunch. We don't have 270 lunch kids coming to school. So because we're feeding them lunch anyway, we thought, we did a water challenge at the end of the year a couple of years ago. How much water can you drink? And so we thought, oh, let's just try and do water only. So we tried. The media got a hold of it, and it was a very interesting experience for me. But the good news is it's now year 2, and it's just a thing now. It's not, this morning, this boy in grade 5 came in. Mom dropped him off late. He had his Tim Hortons or McDonald's or whatever, hash brown, had his iced tea. Here, can you put this in the fridge for me till the end of the day? No problem. It's actually still in the fridge. He forgot it. But there's never, ever any problems or questions or pushback about the water. Every once in a while, find a squished can of Five Alive in the bathroom, and I just laugh and tell myself, kids sneaking Five Alive in the bathroom is the biggest problem I have. It's pretty good. So the water has been really great. We have a kitchen. We feed our kids breakfast and lunch every day and snack. Before I started at Alexander, this new kitchen idea was conceived, and we're in working order now. We have lots of physical literacy opportunities for our kids. This is Bronson. He is one of our success stories. I met him when he was in grade 1. He's in grade 3 now. And he is doing all the things you would expect him to be doing at school, which is this is where we want to document our stories. We haven't done it yet. We just talk about them all the time. So yeah, that's kind of it. We made this part, the staff put together this particular part of the framework last year, and this year we have been, as a staff, talking about the ideas, the things we want to do, the things that you can control yourself. We've been calling them those little kite ideas. They're grounded, you can do it yourself, you can just decide to work with your partner across the hallway and get stuff done. And then we've got some bigger kite ideas, which maybe you need a bit of money for, maybe you need some support for, maybe we need the district for, but we have our tree and now we are flying some kites. And that's Alexander. Thanks.
Wow. That clap was for you, Jeff and Jordan as well. So we got a few minutes for questions. Great testimonials. Jordan, I have a quick question. Your transition going from the electronic digital games to physical activity happens every day.
So it's, yes, we rotate. Well, on Monday we're in the gym, and the next day, so Tuesday we're in the lab. So it's every other day.
Oh, so they're not going from the electronics to the
Not
gym?
on the same day, no.
Okay.
They're a little stinky. We're going straight into the,
Okay.
the smell is something, so we try to, yeah, they get to get changed at the end of boxing class and go to their next class. And then the next day they go to the computer.
I should throw one on there. So the first year, at the end of the year, we asked teachers, what kids do you think play more than 6 hours of video games a day? We generated a list of 30, and that's who we then took the kids and put them in this class. The second year, we let everyone choose because word got out. But that was our goal, the health. Jordan found some literature. If you treat it as a sport, it reduces the amount of time kids do it.
If you take partly because it's just really inefficient. The way that there's so many kids who really care a ton about these games, but there's no coaching. And some of them are really successful. We have kids who are in the top % of all the players in North America, so they are really doing an amazing job at their game. But no one has given them any guidance. And most of the way that the gaming culture understands how to improve is to spend hours and hours and hours and just throw yourself at it until you're tired and keep going. But it's not actually the most efficient way to learn it. They don't ask for help. They don't get coaching. They don't take breaks when they should. They don't eat. All of these things that would actually help them improve their game. They just don't know better. So yeah, they do end up being far more efficient with their time and not having to spend.
Trustee Cameron?
Do you have problems on the Boxing Day? Do the kids know?
They love the Boxing Day.
It's fantastic.
It's actually one of the funniest things. I expected the same thing. I expected it to be really hard to get them into the boxing and very easy to teach them video games. It's actually really hard to teach a nerd about video games. They think they know it all. They think that they are extremely proficient at their games, and there is a reason for why they're actually amazing, and it's their teammates that let them down every game. So it's actually really hard to break that in the gaming world, but the boxing has been the big success. They start, the first few classes are very timid. It's a lot of anxiety about the idea of boxing, but boxing is a game. And when you start treating it like a game of strategy and deception, and you think about it, it's not about beating up your opponent. That's not what boxing is about. It gets a reputation for being kind of a tough, no thinking kind of sport. It's actually tag, and it's more like chess. Every punch has a counter, and every punch leaves you open. And so if you're not thinking about it, you do very poorly. But if you box someone who knows how to box, it's almost like it's a game where they can be 3 moves ahead of you. If you try and box someone who's really good and you're not, you don't get to touch them. They get to poke you in the head all the time.
No one's poking on that.
Thank you. Danny, in terms of the Wolf Den, is there a coordinated effort by the teachers to ensure that each child somehow finds a way into the den, or?
So, Well, so I can tell you what we do. I can't tell you what happens once I give the information to the teachers. When the den is filled, I take down all of the wolf paws. I take them home and I sort them by division, and I will give the whole staff the basic data per division, and then each individual teacher, I will email them their class data. So they'll get the class data for the first den fill, and if a student named Liam was in there once, his name's in there once, and if Chad's in there 3 times, Chad is in Chad, and then the next den fill will be just in a different color, so they can kind of see if everyone's covered. And I definitely know some teachers pay attention to that, and I definitely know some don't.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Like, maybe an observation, but I think, to me, a couple of things that, one of the reasons why it was cool to sort of do these two together is, both, you talked a ton about evidence, and yet it's, you know, you're talking right about how evidence of who goes in, it's not just stickies on the wall, it's then collated, it's then organized, it's then reflected back to teachers, it's then, right, it becomes using evidence to change instruction, and you're doing that in a very soft and yet obvious way. I think that's pretty cool. And I think about, you know, it also comes down to know your kids, and so you know your kids at Kelsey. You looked at, here we think we have a problem with these kids that are gaming over 6 hours a day. What is it we can be doing about it? As opposed to wagging a finger at it, it's a far more positive approach, and it leads to more engagement, I would suggest, of kids and more engagement of teachers. Right? Both of you told stories about how teachers and the adults in your buildings become engaged in the work, not just passively trying to engage kids, but it becomes a school culture of, hey, you got a cool idea, take it to Jeff, and he's probably going to say, yeah, let's take a swing. And same in where teachers are generating this plan. It's not top down, it's generated by teachers.
Here's the next steps that they want to do. We're talking about this.
For PBIS,
Yeah.
the next one is like this big.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole page of excitement. But
When we talked about just all the different aspects of life at Alexander that we want to focus on and move forward with, this is all the Wolfpack ideas. And then the next page is broken up, and there's like 4 or 5 different ideas on one page. But all the teachers, for the most part, are invested, and they can see. Well, they can see every day.
Yep.
And we go to school every day, so it's not as noticeable to us, but it feels good in there.
Transformational change.
Thank you all for what you do to make wonderful environments for our students to learn in. Thank you. Joe?
No question. So the nerds, lack of a better
No,
term,
it's an endearing term.
these guys have always kind of shied away from the normal school population. How are they doing with that now that they're out there with a little bit more physical confidence? Are they more engaging to the rest of the population?
Well, it's a fun blend because there is probably about 4 or 5 kids a year who sign up for the boxing. They're there to box. They like they're the jocks of the group, and so there is that sort of mixing of student cultures, and they have a little more physical confidence. They carry themselves differently after, especially. Braden? Yeah. They carry themselves with a lot more confidence, and I don't know, it's not exactly the same. I have one student in particular that comes to mind who started the year being very afraid he wouldn't even hold the mitts to let you punch his mitts. And by the end of the year, we do a wrestling section, so we go from that to wrestling. He wouldn't let anyone touch him, would not wrestle anyone. And then by the end of that wrestling section, he loved wrestling. And in fact, he threw me around every day. He would be like, Mr. Heath, it's on. We're wrestling. Okay. Wow. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, okay. And so the sort of the connection to the body, and I don't know how that ripples out into their social lives, but they're far more connected to their bodies and comfortable rolling, we do somersaults in the wrestling portion, and the number of kids who can't do a somersault, they do not know how to get their butt over their head. But then at the end of it, we're doing rolls, we're doing dive rolls, we're doing cartwheels, we're getting into a place where they're less, they don't feel as restricted, and they can start to have fun with their bodies.
That's really great.
It's been a long time for some of them since that's happened.
That's one particular with autism, and that's a real testament. He was very angry, and this has been really transformative for that. For all of them, this one boy had in mind, really very, really hard.
And does it help with their schoolwork? Do you see a noticeable?
Absolutely.
And same with in Alexander with these kids who get a palm. Does that help them with their confidence? Because the more confident you are, the better you are at everything else. Is that?
I don't think I can speak to confidence, but I can speak to attendance. And we don't have any hard data right now, but my data based solely on one of our ASWs complaining about attendance, that has significantly dropped. So our kids are coming to school more often. When I started at Alexander in 2016, at the end of September, I remember the list that Terry gave me. Here are all the kids who haven't shown up yet. What do you want me to do about it? And then September 2018, 2 years later, we had one kid and we knew where he was. So to me, that's engagement.
Last question, Trustee Kilmer.
You had one, I mean, I've worked at Coheman for many
Yeah,
years, so hearing that kind of an attendance, that's absolutely amazing. It's a higher testament than you would know
I
if you
remember
hadn't
talking
worked.
about it at the staff meeting. I was super excited about that.
It's just, that makes my heart just, oh, wow.
And we knew where he was, which was the best
Right.
part.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yes, because you can really lose track of them
Yeah.
when they don't come to school, they just don't come to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you all.
If you run fast, we won't notice you leaving.
Yeah.
Mr. St. Clair, you got some business and operation material for us?
Follow that, Jason.
Yeah, said it last time, it's a hard act to follow. Although we are in the kickoff to budget season, so.
And some of us find that really exciting.
Yeah, here we go. We're starting. So the first item that we want to bring to the committee's attention is the most recent year-end projection, and then there's been a fairly significant shift, favorable shift that I want to review with you. So if you don't mind, I'll just stand up and I'll go up there and kind of walk you through it. That's a thing I like to have things like that point with. So we had heard that there was a recalc on the average teacher salary, and the board picked up an additional $30,000 for that recalc. But one number that's not there yet is the funding for the employer health tax, so the MSP replacement, the reimbursement of that. So last time I reported to you that the ministry are only funding from April to June and not January to June. So we're going to get about 50% of what we had expected. Still haven't announced that amount. It's $24 million provincially. We get about 1.5% of that. That's $360,000 that we would expect to still be receiving. It hasn't been announced. We have not brought it into the projection because it has not been announced. So this figure here could be up by about $360,000 in provincial revenue. So we're still being conservative on our estimate. Another area that we're up is in our tuition area, and that's mainly due to the charging for the hairdressing program and the EA program. Our ISP revenues are very, very close to target. That additional is in those two different program areas. Miscellaneous revenues are coming in a little bit over, as are interest. The rates have been good. We've had a lot of money in with the Ministry of Finance. So right now, we would project our revenues over by about $200,000, knowing that the February recount is not in there, and we have higher special education designations than we had in September. So we get a net difference. We get funded on a net difference for the growth not included, nor is the amount for the employee health tax. So there is missing revenue in the projection because it hasn't been announced yet. So looking at our salaries, principals, vice principals are coming in within about $31,000 on a $5.4 million budget, very, very close. Second semester for teachers is costing us a little bit less than first. It's always really kind of hard to figure out if a secondary school has front-end loaded more blocks in the first semester than the second. As well as we move through the year, and we tend to have people leave off on leaves, their replacements cost less. So as we extrapolate their salaries, it tends to go down. So $145,000 surplusing on teacher salaries on 34 million, very close. 57,000 on education assistance at the moment. 43 on clerical, 75 on USW, and exempt 54 on exempt. So those figures are all cumulatively they add up to a fair bit, but as far as a percentage of their budgets, they're all really quite close. Where we saw the big shift was the February snowstorm. That saved us a ton of money on absenteeism.
That explains the little video.
Call it.
Save the budget.
It actually did. It had a significant financial impact through the month of February. That is typically our month of the greatest absenteeism. And having 4 days of no sick leave for one, and then the echo effect of that rest on the balance of the year into the rest of that month has significantly changed the outlook on our absenteeism. So that had a positive shift, and so now we would be looking at our total salaries we are still going over. Like, I'm not saying that it's been the best year. We are over budget on absenteeism, and particularly most of that we've been able to account for the fact that we can now replace our education assistants on the first day that they're absent, where before we had challenges of actually having enough of a replacement pool to replace people. So that costs money to be able to replace people as quickly as they should be. So we are running over it. It's something we'll need to address in the next year's budget as we're planning. So we had about $213,000 surplusing on the salary component. So if you look at that on $61 million, that's pretty close. We're right on. Where we're doing really well is on our benefits. And we think we may have been a little high on our pension estimates. So looking at our budgeting program, we believe that we over budgeted a little bit in our pension area, and we've made an adjustment on that as we move into the 1920 preparations. So we are surplusing about $271,000 on 6.6 million. Still not a huge amount for the percentage, but it's not as close as it should be based on the calculations. Health benefits, we got a premium holiday on our teachers, dental, and extended for 2 months. So what that means is that they collect our premiums through the year, and the amount that you actually have in costs were less than the amount of the premiums that they collected for the previous year. So they give you a couple months off in paying premiums this year because we were basically overpaid last year based on the estimates. So that brings in $260,000 into our health benefits. So right now we have a surplus in the health benefit in the benefits of about $544,000. So that's good news. One of the areas where I think we're going to go over, and this may even be a little bit higher, is in the area of supplies, and that's in the transportation department. So we have had a couple of unfortunate repair bills for old aging buses, 2 turbos, and they were approximately, I think, $24,000 each. Not something you can predict will happen in a year, but it's put their supplies over. So I've accounted for that. And utilities, we're still about $77,000 under budget at the end of February. But there's still an echo on that. Some of the bills for February don't get paid until March, and it depends on the timing. And we certainly know February was an extremely cold month, so that number may drop before we get to at the end of the year. So when you add all of that up, let's go a little bit further. Let's go. We end up looking at a surplus off budget, so not the 900 and something that's still in the bank, but on the board's contingency, off budget of about 986,000, which doesn't account for the employer health tax or the February count funding, which is still going to come in. So doing quite well. Most of that coming out of some shifts in our sick leave. It has gone up. It was $610,000 when we brought this report in the last month. So it has moved a bit. So that is good news as we move into next year's budget preparations, and we'll get tighter on that number as we get closer to the end of the year. Everything becomes a little bit more predictable. We get through all the cold weather. The absenteeism should have stabilized some more. We'll have a better idea of what our second semester costs are. I know we've just added a number of education assistant positions to deal with the new students that were brought in. Some of that will be reflected in the estimate. But overall, it looks like we're in reasonable shape as we move forward into next year's budget.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions, Mr. Sanquist? Okay,
Next one. So we are getting into next year's budget, and over the break, the funding announcement came out, and we want to talk to you about that. That's the first step of the budget cycle. That's part of our budget timelines, is to bring funding to this committee. So what you're seeing here is a 3-year rate change for the funding rates that the board received per student. So the standard, the 7,400 plus we'll just basically call that our 8,000 students. We're at, in 2017-2018, we're at a rate of 7,301, which was an increase of about 1.15%. That was the inflation. The next year we're at 7,423, that's the current year, 1.67%, that's the inflation. But this next year, where you see 7,468, a change of $45, 0.61%, that's, what I need to explain is that that doesn't fully cover our inflation. So what we have coming are wage increases that were negotiated for May of this year, 1% for our QP and USW teachers on May 1st, as well as another 0.75% for something called the Economic Stability Dividend. We also have next year reduced contact time for elementary teachers, which has a cost associated with it, which is to be funded by the ministry. So the instructional time, the non-contact time has to be increased, which means we have to hire more, music teachers to cover that time. So the total bill for all of that is about $1.2 million. And this inflationary adjustment here is about $400,000. So where's the other $800,000? It's ended up in here, in special ed rates and in the ab ed rates. So about a third of it has showed up here, but the perception is that we've got all this great news on our level 1, level 2, and level 3 increases of $3,600 for a level 1, 9.28%, $800 for a level 2, 4.12%, and $450 for a level 3, 4.59%, and especially in the ab ed, $220 for 17.89% funding increase. So what the ministry's done is taken money that would normally be coming for our inflationary factors, which would typically be in our regular block, and has distributed it through the funding formula. If that makes sense. So this will generate a lot of money in level 1, level 2, and level 3. But some of that needs to be accounted for in the fact that we have these inflationary pressures for wages across our system.
So Mr. Sam, I'm not quite sure, is level 1, level 2, and level 3 money designated for?
No.
It's not?
No.
So you have the freedom to move some as necessary?
But there'd be an expectation, and I think the ministry is signaling a very strong message to boards that this is where I think you need to invest your money, because this really, if you look at success rates, certainly those are areas where the success rates aren't as high as the overall population. So interesting the way it's come in this year, and it may even be a bit of a signal to the next funding model, which is coming out next year, because they've taken a significant shift of money into SPED and ab ed. So the next slide up, I'll show you how that all flows out here for us. Up next, so we've got to go, I think we just need to scroll that. Sorry, the previous one has one more page underneath it. You go up. There we go. So this is what it looks like. I said that we needed about 400 in here just for the inflationary pressures. Sorry, we need 1.2 for inflationary pressures. We've got about 400 in here. 500 is basically for enrollment growth. We're up by about 72 students. You can see the additional money coming in through the SPED and ab ed. another $982,000. There's $1 million coming in there, and it's not all related to enrollment. We're actually down a bit on our projection for AVED, and we're up about, net 3 down on level 1, and then 20 students here. We're net up by 17 students in special education, so you wouldn't expect that to generate, $800,000 or $700,000, but it is. So it's just a bit of a shift to where the money's coming to the board, because this is a funding distribution model, not how you have to spend it. But you do have to spend an increased amount on your target now for AVED. So the target this year was 1.9 million. Next year is going to be 2.2 million. That is a targeted amount. We can't underspend that. So that will mean that there'll be approximately $300,000 of an additional investment that will be made in the budget process for learners in the Aboriginal education self-disclosed learners. So unique student needs is up by $982,000. Another interesting part is unique geographic factors. They moved some more money into what they would consider to be rural and smaller communities. So our board has benefited in that regard. So we've received a little bit more money because we're not Victoria, Vancouver, Kelowna. They call those sort of their urban centers. So if you're not one of those, you get a little bit of extra money in those factors. So good news, we're up by about 2.163 million. If you roll through the other February and May counts, which are pretty consistent, those are just our rate adjustments. We end up at 2.168 in additional funding. But I said about 1.2 of that is for inflationary pressures. So we are actually ahead. And some of that is, again, but about 500 of that is for enrollment growth. So the balance of it being that we are actually a little bit ahead. We were a bit of a winner on this formula change.
Trustee Skipper?
Could I just ask you to clarify? You said that the way the formula funding came in is not the way we had to spend the money. Now, is Aboriginal education no longer targeted?
That's the only target.
That's the only target.
Thank you.
That's correct. So this is the funding. We're currently very close on having expenditures ready as well. So hopefully at the board meeting we'll be able to start with the overall position. So how do revenues match expenditures? We've got a couple of factors that we need to just clarify that otherwise we are very, very close to having the expenditures rolled over. We know that we have growth, so we're going to need more teachers. We know that we have the new collective agreement language for teachers with the lower contact time, so we know we have to put in staff for that. We know that additional SPED students means we need to have additional EAs to kind of match those services. We know that our sick leave is under, given the new trends on replacing EAs, we know we need to build that in. So we are starting to get all those factors together, and we're not quite ready today. But I expect the next time we're together, we'll have the overall picture as our starting point, so likely next week. So that's all I had on the funding. That was what we wanted to explain to you today. It's up. I think that we were positively impacted by the changes because we have a large percentage of our learners, increasing percentage of our learners with designations and identifying as Aboriginal, Indigenous learners. So we have come out, I think, a little bit ahead, and that's good news as we move into the budget, combined with the surplus that we've just shown you that we're generating this year.
Okay. Any questions? Budget guiding principles.
We realize we haven't had these since 2010, 2011. We've certainly had the strategic priorities and referenced those through the budget process, but thought that it might be a good idea to work on some budget guiding principles for the board as we move through the conversations. I've drafted.
The last 5 years we've had no principles.
We've had our we've had our priorities.
We've matched it to the
We've
priorities.
Yes, we certainly have laid
in a principle-free fashion.
Yes.
Yes. So I put this together as a starting point for conversation. I think it reflected some of the previous ones that we had. Certainly the session that some of the trustees and I joined at in Nanaimo, we'd heard that this was a good practice as well to establish your principles, and that's where it sort of came back up in front of mind again that we should probably do this. So these are here for discussion.
Could you define for me, how you separated overview and guiding principles. Because in my thinking about it, when you talked about the overview of achieving vision, mission, and values, for me, the strategic priorities are even, definitely related really strongly there. So I'm not sure why that was put in overview versus guiding principle.
Yeah, I was just looking for some like more overarching items than the principles. I guess it could be. I mean, you could take that out and combine this entire document into one budget guiding principles. I just sort of saw those as sort of the bigger issues. Like, what is the budget? I was trying to explain that it reflects the district's education and operational objectives. So that's an overview item. Maybe the aligning with vision, mission, and values would be a principle. But I was just sort of looking.
These are more goals. These are principles.
They were
for the goals.
I think that's what I was sort of targeting here. Again, open for discussion. This was just my starting point.
Did you want to rebuttal?
Yeah, no, just to fully clarify this, perhaps the word overview is not what we really want here. It's ringing for me. I'm not sure if there's another word, but certainly it doesn't describe what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it doesn't even need to be there. Get rid of overview and just say the district will budget the financial plan that. And it's guiding principles.
That's fine. I was just trying to basically say what is the budget? What is its purpose? And then what are the principles to build it under?
Sorry.
Just another little piece that I didn't appreciate when I read it through. Allows for the monitoring of actual versus planned expenditures. And I understand that that would be one of the things we wanted to do with the budget. But if we're planning the budget, can we really monitor and monitor the planned and actual expenditures before we have the plan?
I think what I was trying to say is that once you have your budget is your financial plan, and we regularly bring you projections, and they're against that budget, so that you can see whether or not you're on track with your financial objectives. So maybe I didn't say it in a way that resonates or agrees, but my goal of that was just, why do we have a budget and why is it the district's financial plan? Well, one of the things that it allows us to accomplish is to have a tracking mechanism for whether or not we're achieving those financial results. That's what I was trying to say there.
Trustee DeGroot.
Can we just take the word planned out and put projected expenditures instead?
Well, the planned are the budget. Budget is the planned expenditure. Or you could just say budgeted.
Yeah. Instead
of planned. Actual versus budgeted expenditures. There's another way to say that. That may be clearer than the way I've written it.
Okay, moving on to guiding principles. Any other concerns or changes? Trustee Croft.
I like the idea of balance around instruction, administration, operations, and transportation. I also think that sometimes we have to give consideration to balancing individual learners versus the school versus the district versus, and I'm not too sure how to word that, but we have to cover a spectrum from individual needs to district-wide needs, and that has to be a balanced approach in meeting those needs. Does that make sense, Jason?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, thanks.
Do we need more words around transparent process?
Just more.
it wasn't intended to be a complete document.
Oh,
When I brought it here, it was a discussion starter. So I'm absolutely open to any. They're yours, so I'm open to any amendments.
Trustee Spokesman.
Could I just ask for a description of the total process then? What's the next step, and when do we get to the final version of our guiding principles?
Well, I was hoping we'd have a final version after today, because as we start to read it's supposed to help us guide our budget work as staff start to craft priorities and proposals. It would be helpful if there's more time needed. I imagine we could roll it forward to later this week. It could be a potential board planning add-on. I know it's sort of sudden when we brought it here.
I hear a motion coming to refer this to board planning.
As
Trustee
expressed, I'll make that motion.
Second by trustees Croft. Any discussion about the referral of the priority referral? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, budget survey.
On your desktops, you should have the last year's budget survey. It'll look like this, with a chart on it.
Desktop.
Here,
Oh, I didn't pick up the one, sorry.
okay. So,
You read it.
It's also on the screen.
Thank you.
So as part of our budget process, we are planning to send out a survey later on this week. I think it's scheduled for Thursday in our budget timelines. Last year, it was probably the most engagement that we have had on budget numbers in quite a significant amount of time. We know that when we hold public meetings, we don't have great turnout. However, this survey, I believe, had over almost 350 respondents, which did help guide the budget process last year. Certainly, I know that some of the items that were strongly supported here were implemented, such as the nature school, the wellness program. I mean, that all came out of the survey and some of the feedback of the survey, so it confirmed some of those ideas. So we have it here again. This is last year's. We had a review of it this morning with the district leadership team. Have some recommendations that we'd like to make, but curious about. Again, I know this has come very suddenly. We didn't have a chance to get this onto the agenda earlier, but it really starts with there's a series of 13 questions that we had last time. The first couple just really being who are you, as far as identifying the survey respondent. But one of the focuses last year was on the early years and finding out information on support for early years programs. Certainly we had a strong response. I think that is a useful area to ask questions about again and inform. And part of our survey as well was a document that informed the reader about what's already happening. So there's a preamble for each question, and then we move into our questions. So I wanted to have an opportunity to see if we want to go with a very similar survey, very similar format this year, or if the trustees have any other ideas on engagement or other areas that they'd like to be explored in the survey. We go through every question or just.
This is evolving to a better place. Trustee Spokesman.
Can I just say that I reread this and quite liked it. I thought that it was really well designed. There may be some other issues that staff might want us to talk about in our survey. Meanwhile, I think the areas that we had identified as areas that we wanted to look at further supporting are still here. So, I don't know, do you have any other suggestions for us to think about?
Well, we think that some of these things we did. We did put in an employee wellness program, so we may not need to ask about what support is necessarily in the same way.
We don't want to ask a question that we already know the answer to. So if we're not prepared to take out the employee wellness program, why would we ask if they think we should have one? We might want to ask something else around wellness.
Right, so
it might still be a topic we want to probe. Same thing with in the communications part. We thought there might be wanting to reword that a little bit as we now have a far more robust Facebook presence. We have other presences. We might want to get impact. Where do you get your information from, and what should we be doing more of, or less?
Right. Find out where people are going to find out information about the school district would be one. And I certainly think we probably know what's Facebook and the interaction there, but it would be good to get some more feedback. So we're happy to make some minor adjustments to make this reflect the current year.
Bring it back to board line
I mean, this is a huge question, but we should be thinking about reconciliation and a reconciliation lens on many things that we do. How that would work, eventually it's going to have to be reflected in the budget, right? So perhaps consider a question to start that conversation.
Okay, Mr. Allen?
Certainly not disagreeing, but if everyone that responded and said no, we shouldn't, would we not do it? Like, I think you'll be careful not to ask questions that you already know the answer to. Maybe it's how you might demonstrate reconciliation, or like, I think that's probably fair game. But I just think you want to be careful, because you don't want to have to say, well, we got all this input and we're going to do it anyway.
I didn't mean to say yes or no, but a broad stroke perhaps. Anyway, I would ask you to consider it. Maybe our timing isn't quite on yet, but put it out there for you guys.
So how do you want us to do this at home and send some ideas in to all of us, or do you want to do this at
I
board
think
planning?
we could draft back to board planning, and if there's feedback from trustees in between that, we can try to reflect it into the.
Yeah, but I think generally it's sort of.
It's
pretty good. Like we read it and went and said, yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, like Mike's not going to do any better than Katie. So so that was so we thought that was pretty good. Get my shots while I can. But we know we need to tweak some stuff, and so we can go ahead and do that and bring it back to board planning. And if you have suggestions, fire them in, and we'll.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, last item is the advisory committee. Terms of reference, revised. Is the purpose of it to be recommended to the board for adoption, or what is the purpose? Or is it just for advice?
If I may, it's a change in policy. It's an update, and so we are going to take a look at it today and hopefully recommend, if we're all happy, we would recommend it to go to the board for final approval as a change in policy. Is that right, Jason? Okay.
So as a chairperson of that committee, are you happy?
No, I have a change. Actually, Jason, I did email it to you, but just for the sake of record keeping, around item number 7. So we already have the Secretary Treasurer will produce a written summary of the perspectives and advice received by the committee. Yes. I'd like to then sort of tweak it a bit and go with 7A. The Secretary Treasurer will place the summary on the subsequent Board of Education and Business Committee agenda. The Advisory Committee may share verbal highlights from the summary at BEBC. And that's coming to you in an email. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I would like to make a motion that we change the terms of reference as what I have just read out.
And so are you proposing to delete the words "and will circulate to all partner groups and will present it to the board"? That's what I heard you do.
You're right, so that's, no. No, thank you. So I'm just saying that the Secretary Treasurer doesn't report to the board. I'm sorry, now I'm confused.
So you stopped at the word committee, and you added an A and B, which I understand.
Okay.
But I don't know what happened to the rest of the words that are there now.
So we're wondering whether or not we circulate it to all partner groups.
So
We
we
can't
expect-
circulate it until it goes to the board and has been received by the board.
I'm just asking what
Yeah.
you wanted to do.
I
so-
know, but I'm just trying to remember how I thought this through.
Okay, okay.
That
Okay.
part gets taken.
Okay, we just strike that out, strike out the
Sorry,
last
but
part.
Jason has a comment.
It ends up on the board's open agenda, which is circulated to all partner groups.
Right, yeah, so I think that's
So
why,
effectively,
that's
it
exactly
occurs.
why I didn't bother to put that in.
Okay, so you're changing the sentence there by stopping at committee, or putting a colon and then you're putting A and B.
Yeah.
And can you just read out
Would you like me to read that again?
A and B again?
Here's the whole thing. The Secretary Treasurer will produce a written summary of the perspectives and advice received by the committee. The Secretary Treasurer will place the summary on the subsequent Board and Education Business Committee agenda.
That was A.
Yeah. B, the advisory committee chair may share verbal highlights from the summary at BEBC. And that's it, because it being shared with partner groups and going to be received at the board meeting is inherent in all of our other processes.
Okay.
Okay?
Does everybody understand the intent of that change, and the wording of that change? So could we have a motion then to adopt the advisory committee terms of reference as amended and recommend to the board? Not adopt, we recommend to the board adoption.
Yes.
Trustee Crown, Trustee Spillister. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Nice
That
work.
was a lot of work. No, it took us a while just to nail that paragraph, so thank you very much for all your support.
Any closing comments? Motion to adjourn? Trustee Spillister, Trustee Guerrero.
Sorry.
Thank you, staff, for your patience.